When I began studying at the University of South Africa, and it was very difficult because I didn't understand contemporary art and I didn't understand what was asked of me. I remember my teachers, all of my teachers told me, Katya, you cannot just sit and wait for inspiration to come. They said you have to work. You have to work and you have to do something. Inspiration only comes to those who work on it. So they said to me, if you have to work every day. If you can't read, if you don't feel like reading, draw. If you don't feel like drawing, go and explore. If you don't feel like exploring, go and relax and do yoga. So since then I always learned that during my art making processes, I have to always stay on top of my topic in one way or another. To research, to do yoga, to do relaxation techniques. So that advice proved very valuable for me, as well as to be less precious about my work, to be more experimental. Very often I tend to, when something comes out right and pretty, I tend to not touch it. Oh, I'm going to leave it because that looks right now. But you kind of, I push myself over and then you work on it again and again, and only then something comes out when you're actually truly satisfied with. I think traveling is part of my life because we've been traveling and migrating and relocating every 3 years since I remember. So I'm used to change, new friends, new schools, new locations, new houses, new weathers, new temperatures. And then, so because traveling became part of my life and art is part of my life, they got intertwined. Yes, early in about 2000 something, we had friends who planned to immigrate to Australia, and they were going to move because we lived in Mozambique at that time. And because of the climate, very similar climate, they were going to move to Townsville. And at that stage I was very much cartoon viewer and enjoy my cartoons. And at that time they said, oh, we're going to Townsville. And I turned my head and I said, what? Townsville is somewhere where Powerpuff Girls live. It's a fictional city. And that's how. Never to know that 10 years or something later I will end up in Townsville myself. I come from a generation of paper maps, reading maps while we're driving, something that you can't do now. And I guess it's one of those things, reading. You're reading maps, you're reading your location, you have to find out, your GPS doesn't talk to you. You have to read mountains, you have to read. So I guess from there I developed passion for nature, for books, for paper, and for that sort of traveling. So mapping relates to me in many ways, exploring, very much explorational, because during your travels very often you kind of don't know where you are. You expose yourself to unknown, to unfamiliar, and map allows you to find your way around or to make you feel more secure and find your place and your position kind of. And when you do, it makes you feel more comfortable. The same with art. Art also, you kind of you immerse yourself into the unknown, into exploration, into research, into panic of not knowing what to do or where to start and where to, where does your concept come from, and there's a deadline, you have to complete it, and it's not something, you just do, it's something you have to complete. And the same, so with, I find my own mapping when I do my art making, to find a way to locate myself, to find a position and to find the way where I go next in my art making. My ideas and inspiration comes from research projects, commissions, other proposals. First of all, when I get them, I get very excited because I like to create, I like to decorate, I like pretty stuff. So I get very excited. I'm thinking, ooh, something out of my comfort zone. They are going to the adventure, they are going to my travel, my creative travel. So then I get very anxious and very panicky because I'm thinking, oh, what do I pack with me? What do I do? Where do I get? How do I get ready for it? As you would get ready for your trip. You get very excited and then you're thinking, oh, what do I do now? The same with my art making. And then after the panic sets in, I'm thinking, okay, planning phase starts. And during my planning phase, I do a lot of reading, looking at visual images, resources, magazines, very often random stuff. It comes from celebrity gossip magazines to new scientists that I get in the airport. And I get a lot of interesting books, like I've got this one with Earth, different mappings of Earth. And then I start reading lots of philosophical stuff, here and there, quotes, mostly not books but quotes. And then all of it gets into some kind of idea. from the commission or from my proposal to the aha moment where I know what I want to do and I'm kind of clear, I know my foot is in, usually takes me about 3 to 4 weeks. During that phase, when I get tired of reading and looking at stuff, obviously during that time I've got lots of drawing books, workbooks, and then I start sketching. And sometimes sketches are just real doodles. And then I get into a phase where I get lots of pencils. I go to the shop and I just buy pencils. And then I just start drawing with pencils. And suddenly, sometime during one of this doodling, I get this moment, aha! And then I know what to do, and the concept is starting to be born. My work always deals in between drawing, mapping, finding ways. So my doodles are part of it's just more or less like on a miniature scale. So from small doodling, I unroll a big sheet of paper. I usually put it either on the floor or on a big table wherever I find space, and I start then doodling big. Part of +1, my work was titled Mops, Maps and Migrations. It is a collage, digital collage on paper, and cutouts on large sheets of paper. Because the exhibition was held in 2015, it was just 1 year I was in Australia, so the whole hardships and differences, getting used to the culture, the island, and just settling down was very hard for me. Then I started working and studying at the same time, so the title of my work, Mops, Maps and Migrations, but mops about hardships and maps about finding your ways, and migrations because of just, I've just come here. That was the concept behind the work. So during that time, I got inspired by a few artists, by a few very brilliant contemporary artists, and when I looked at them, they were working with paper and cutouts, and then I was thinking that I like paper, I always liked paper. I liked cutting snowflakes and at school, and I just like working with paper. So I bought a big roll of paper, and I started my miniature drawing, but with a knife, with a cutting knife, straight away, sometimes without drawing. And then because of the natural shape of paper, it was rolled up, some pieces started to come out. And that's how I started, oh, okay. And then I started working more in detail with a pencil. So I started drawing on a larger scale. And all those movements, they were almost like liberating movements, almost like cutting through the map, cutting through the environment, and cutting through the landscape where I was living in. And I saw it popping out, and I saw it taking its own different shape, taking its own life, like I am taking my own life. And it's kind of in control and almost not in control. And that's what I like working with paper, because you kind of don't know where it's going to turn and twist and bend. You get torn apart when you travel, when you migrate. You lose friends, you find new ones. So I used Velcro as a metaphor for attachment and detachment. It's almost, you can't stick together easily, and you kind of as easily get detached. And that's how I find it with me. I kind of easily make friends, but I kind of easily detach from them. Still love them, but I detach from them emotionally. Detach from material things emotionally. Detach from cultures emotionally. I believe we all have a story to tell. And at the moment where I'm heading is, I'm interpreting, because I feel at this stage of my life, I feel settled in Australia. So it feels like now I can create my own characters, fictional characters, and let them live a life. So at the moment, the project where I'm heading to is going to be with different characters, different body parts, and telling some kind of story. I think I'm exploring myself from the third person. I think I kind of almost stepped outside of myself, and I'm looking back into childhood, or I'm looking back where my comfort zones were, and my characters are reflections of me, perhaps from the past. So it's not about me at this stage as a traveler, because I'm a settler at the moment, but it's that part of me is now going to tell a story from where the traveling began, where the traveler was born.